Bobby Witt Jr. is a rich, rich human being. Good for Bobby Witt Jr. We're going to talk about the pre-arbitration extension that the Kansas City Royals just handed out. It cleared their largest contract that they had ever dished out by more than $200 million. We also got to talk about the best first baseman in baseball and an interesting soundbite from the mayor of Las Vegas, Nevada, about the Oakland A's for now. All that coming in a moment. Jack, Aram, Just Baseball Show, as always, presented by BetMGM on Wednesday, February 7th. You're headed to Vegas tomorrow. Are you excited to get out to the Sin City? Are you going to drop a how about that drive in? I guess that's why they call it Sin City.
No, I'm gonna land and just soak it in. I think I've never been, so
Really?
I'm interested to just like see what I'm probably gonna come away with some ridiculous perspective on it. I'm sure that I'll
Yeah.
bring back to the show. But I'm excited. We're not going to the Super Bowl, but our friends at BetMGM have basically made it all but that. Like we're gonna have a really cool experience. We're gonna be on Radio Row, credentialed for the Super Bowl as well before that. So don't even really cover football on my end, and I know it's gonna be cool for Peter and the Just Gridiron TikTok account and his betting picks and all the things that he does there.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of along for the ride and just gonna say what's up to people in the media that we don't usually cross paths with because we don't do much football and just enjoy it. So I'm pumped about that. And probably if Peter was on the episode, he would mention that $5 for the
Yes.
158 free or 163 free dollars. Like it's an absurd deal. But yeah, it makes sense if you want to bet on the Super Bowl to do that with the MGM code. But dude, I'm excited to check it off, and I'm excited to really, you know, scout it all out and see if it's a viable place for a Major League Baseball franchise.
Well, so the mayor of Las
That's the
Vegas.
real reason why I'm there.
Yeah, the mayor of Las Vegas doesn't think it. I mean, she thinks it is, but like she thinks they should figure out a way to stay in Oakland. More on that in a moment. Is one of us going to change? What's the word? We're both wearing our like athletic tee. I think we're just going to roll with it. Um, I'm not going to hear your negative take on Vegas if you do come back with a negative take, because as somebody that is very hesitant to sit down at a table, I love Las Vegas. The food scene is second to none. The pool scene is second to none. And dude, the people watching that you do in Las Vegas is amazing. Like, just sit there and watch people walk by,
Oh, I'm
and
looking
you'll
forward to
leave
that.
and you'll be thrilled.
I'm looking forward to that part of it for
Yeah.
sure, especially that this time of year, and especially with the Super Bowl. Like, it's going to be an absurd people watching experience. It's a AAA ballpark I've wanted to go to. It's interesting too because I'm excited to just really get an understanding of what it can possibly be as a sports town, which is I think not really anything. I think it's going to consistently be well attended. That's why the Super Bowl. I mean, like it's like $8,000 to just even go to the game.
Yeah.
And I know that their AAA team is done well in terms of attendance, relative to some other ball clubs. But I don't know how I envision a big league franchise, being like consistently supported, but baseball wise, 81 times a year. I think it's a little different than a football situation, but I haven't been there, so I'm gonna really take it in and give you my thoughts. But the one thing that's gonna bother me the most is, which we know is like I'm gonna have a 5.5 or whatever, however long the flight is there. It's not gonna be an enjoyable flight, and I always think it's nuts that the second I sit down, they tell me to enjoy the flight. And we've talked about this, like who enjoys a flight?
I don't know. Like, I watch Crazy Rich Asians on like any, like that's always a movie option on Delta especially.
Sit back, relax in this really uncomfortable chair and enjoy not moving for 5 hours
And
unless the person next to you has to pee.
and watch
Then you have to
Crazy
get
Rich
up.
Asians. And I always cry at that movie, so I like crying on planes. It's good. Yeah, I don't know if Carolyn Goodman thinks it's a good spot for Major League Baseball either. Carolyn Goodman is the mayor of Las Vegas. She was on the Front Office Sports Today podcast earlier today on Tuesday. And she was asked if she thinks that the area in Las Vegas that they are doing the ballpark renderings for is the right spot for a Major League Baseball team. And keep in mind with all this, like you may question big league success. I think the Raiders are not a good gauge for that. I think the Golden Knights are a great gauge for that.
That's
And the
definitely a
Golden
much better
Knights,
gig. Yeah.
And the Golden Knights are doing really well there, and they're
They
coming
also
off a Stanley Cup win.
won a title. Yeah, that's the thing. These NHL teams, they like the expansion drafts like beneficial to them. These expansion teams end up being good in 1 year, so
Yeah.
it's insane. So I think that does help, right? It helped that they were like, what was it, the second year they won the cup? I'm not a big hockey guy, but like
First year they got there. I think third year they won it, or
yeah, I
fourth
mean
year
like
they
that's
won it.
freaking insane. Even just getting there, you built a core of fans there. So like that's not
Yeah.
going to happen with the A's. Like we know that they're even if they
Never say
spend.
never.
It's not going to happen within the first couple years. And so how do you win those fans over and things like that? I do think that that is encouraging, but it's still like twice the games too. I am fascinated by that. I'm also trying to rack my brain as to why. I mean, I love it. I think the A's should be staying in Oakland, and we should be looking into expansion rather than relocation for Major League Baseball, which we've talked about. I mean, there's so many different. I know Portland's been, now floated more as a city.
Salt Lake City,
Salt Lake
Charlotte.
City.
Yeah.
You could have so many different cities that we should have expansion franchises in, and Vegas should be one of them under consideration. But I'm just trying to rack my brain as to why Carolyn Goodwin would come out and say, "Hey, yeah, we don't really need this baseball team."
Yeah, she said, quote, I personally think they've got to figure out a way to stay in Oakland because, like, hey, you get the waterfront property and you get the new ballpark and all that. Very weird that the mayor of the team that's going to get a Major League Baseball team is saying, I think they should probably stay in their old home.
And there's so much like politics that goes into this, and I think that's the side of it. It's like a whole world that we don't even really know about, that a sports fan probably doesn't even want to bother knowing about unless it's your team. Like I remember as a kid getting really into, understanding the whole process of getting a new stadium. When the Marlins were going through that process, because if the Marlins didn't get a new stadium, Jeffrey Loria was threatening to relocate as well. And in that situation, I was learning, okay, why Broward County isn't working, why Miami-Dade County was a better option for them because, they were willing to use taxpayer money to do it. Why the Orange Bowl ends up being this location where they basically give it to them and say, if you build it here, we'll just give you the location. So like the politics around it too. And now there was a lot of blowback because taxpayers paid for it, and it's kind of been, not the best franchise and not the most well-supported and successful stadium, though I do think the stadium's nice, and if you're in town, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
The politics of it is interesting too. So I wonder if just Miss Goodman here, Mayor Goodman, just has no interest in John Fisher being the guy who brings the franchise over there, knowing that expansions, I don't know if it's going to happen 5 years, 10 years, whenever it's going to happen at some point, almost just preferring to wait and say, look, we've got other sports teams here. We've funneled plenty over the last few years. I don't need some asshole owner, bringing the franchise over here. I'd rather have a fresh start with an expansion team. Maybe LeBron wants to get in or something like that. But I'd imagine that she probably prefers that it's a star-studded ownership group and not really what is the complete opposite of that in John Fisher.
Yes, that makes a ton of sense. One quick thing before we get to Bobby Witt, that this just came down from Alden Gonzalez. It was initially reported by John Heyman and Joel Sherman. The Dodgers have reached an agreement with Clayton Kershaw on a return. So Kershaw is coming back to the Dodgers. Again, injury will hold him out until likely the All-Star break. I don't have many thoughts on this immediately, but my first reaction is I'm not surprised. This had to happen. This guy is not going to play in a uniform that isn't a Dodgers uniform in his major league career. And that has become abundantly clear. Last offseason, I think, was the only chance for him to jump and go to Texas. He would go to Texas, if anywhere, because he's from there. But the fact that he stayed with LA and is going to keep doing these 1 or 2 year deals, do the LeBron thing where he keeps signing 1-year deals, like, he's going to be a Dodger. He wants to go down as one of the greatest pitchers of all time. And you do that, you enhance that narrative by staying with one team for your entire career. He's got the chance to do that.
I was just getting nervous he might retire because it was one of those situations where it's like, how bad does Clayton Kershaw want to continue to play baseball? If the Dodgers weren't willing to bring him back, how bad is he? Like, does he really want to play to go play elsewhere?
Like, honestly, based on what he said, it doesn't seem like he really wants to keep going that badly if it doesn't work out. Like, it seems like he has other ventures in mind.
And I'd imagine his arms probably, he's probably sick of that shit hurting. Like I'm sick of
Right.
my shit hurting and I haven't played baseball for like 8 years. Like, and my arm still hurts all the time. Like I can't imagine when you're going through that. Like he endures a lot and they manage him very carefully. But the other side of it that's really interesting too is like, there really was no reason for the Dodgers not to bring him back either because you can put him on the IL instantly. He does not take a 40-man spot. He's Clayton fucking Kershaw. But on top of that, they're going to need him down the stretch, even if he's not one of your main guys in the postseason. He's going to be a really important arm for you every fifth day in the second half when you got to fill out the fourth and fifth spot of the rotation. When you're trying to manage Walker Buehler's innings, when you're trying to manage Tyler Glasnow's innings, when you're just legitimately trying to have five starters consistently in a rotation, for the duration of the year, it's going to be very important to have Kershaw there.
This Paxton deal makes all the sense in the world now because I don't know if you saw Dave Roberts at Dodger Fest or whatever it was at Dodger Stadium. He was asked about Walker and he said, he won't be on the roster on opening day. They will kind of backlog him. They'll work his innings backwards. Same deal with Kershaw. He's not going to be there pre-All-Star break. They're doing this thing like in a very calculated way where they're going to ramp up Buehler. They're going to ramp up Kershaw just in time for October.
Okay.
They seem sick of this shit. Like getting to October as an 110 win team and running out of gas. Like their pitchers, at the very least, are going to have plenty of gas in the tank.
They're going to run Paxton into the ground through the first.
Yes.
He's going to be thrown every third day through the first half of the season.
Old Hoss
right,
Radborn.
Hand over the baton. It's Kershaw's time. And last thing I wanted to mention on Kershaw, because I know that and I know that like most people know that he's been still really good over the last 2 years. The thing has been like managing his innings and just keeping him fresh and trying to just keep him on the field. But if you combine the last 2 years, 258 innings, 274 strikeouts. So that's 9.6. I don't like K9, by the way. I like strikeout rate, but I can't do that right now. Yeah. What do you think his ERA is over the last 258 innings?
Yeah, probably mid to high twos.
2.37.
Yeah, like this dude started the All-Star game in 2022. People should not forget that this motherfucker started the All-Star game.
He's still getting, not just getting outs. When he's on the mound, he is still a frontline guy. It might not look the same. It might not look like a frontline guy, and he might have the blow up start here or there. 2.28 over 126 innings and a 2.46 over 131. Like they just gave up a shitload for a guy that was lucky to do that in Tyler Glasnow. That's the thing. Like that's Glasnow's best. Like that's what we've seen the best of Glasnow in terms of innings. Like a solid ERA in 130 innings. So like, I think people still forget that even though he's not going to give you 170, 180, 200 innings anymore, a 2.3, 2.4 for 130 innings is extremely valuable if you manage them correctly.
What is the end result? What is the end goal for a starting pitcher? Over the course of a start, a pitcher goes out to throw a baseball game. What do they want to do?
Give their team a chance to win.
They want to go as long as possible and allow as fewer runs as possible. And that's what Clayton Kershaw does. Like, is he doing it for 200 innings a year? No. But like, it doesn't matter that he's sitting 90 with his heater. It doesn't matter that his slider is sometimes harder than his fastball. He's getting outs and he's not allowing runs, and that is pitching. I know that we can stray away from that at some points, especially the last couple of years. And, unfortunately, like, we are getting to a point where, the lowercase x is like a real thing. But like Kershaw is, I think, the perpetual reminder that the whole goal of pitching is out accumulation and run prevention.
Yep. And he's still striking guys out, though. That's the thing. He's getting more than a strikeout per nine. The last thing I'll say is, speaking of strikeouts, he is 56 away from 3,000. So that'll be a pretty awesome milestone this coming year. And as it pertains to Walker, I love that they're delaying his start, to the season, because just knowing him from the episodes that we've done and just kind of getting to know him over the last year, that guy wants to pitch in the fucking postseason, man. Yes. So I'm pumped for him on that. And also congratulations to him, right? You just welcomed a new addition to the family.
The daughter, baby girl. So yeah, big congrats to Walker and Mackenzie. They had their first child, a daughter, on January 31st. So Yeah, that's going to be good. First season as a dad, and obviously we'll talk
Dad
with
strength.
him. Yeah, dad strength is here, and I think we'll talk to him on the February 12th episode, Super Bowl Monday. Wake up with your hangover and listen to us chat with Walker Bueller.
Hell yeah.
Last thing before we get to first baseman, Bobby Witt just got paid like more than it may make sense, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about that in a moment. But Bobby Witt just signed an 11-year, $288.7 million extension. Bobby Witt was 2 years in to his major league career. Obviously, it was night and day. Yeah, he went 2030 his rookie year, but he was not a good defender by any advanced metric. His OBP was under 300. What does he do this past year? He turns in one of the better defensive seasons that we've seen from a shortstop in some time. And oh, by the way, he was a 30-30 guy. He is incredible. The Royals their largest deal that they had ever handed out was Sal Perez. I think it was $82 million. So they
Mhm.
bested it again by over $200 million. That leaves the Oakland A's and the Chicago White Sox as the only two franchises yet to hand out a nine-figure deal.
I,
But
I would really put the fucking Marlins in that too, because the
they
only
paid Stanton and didn't see it
but
through.
Loria paid him knowing that he was getting the hell out of town, backloaded the heck out of that, and just said, "All right, that's somebody else's problem." But I know that it is what it is. But I would throw the Marlins in that conversation too.
So breakdown on Bobby Witt is $2 million this year, 7 mil in what would have been his ARB 1 season, 13 in ARB 2, 19 in ARB 3. And then on the open market, 30 mil, 35, 35. He then has three stacked player options ahead of his age 31, 32, and 33 seasons. Sorry, four stacked player options ahead of his
Yeah,
31, 32, 33, and 34 seasons, all at $35 million. And then entering his age 35 season, there are club options at 33 in 2035, 28 in 2036, and 28 again in 2037. There was a fun little glitch on Spot Track where he just turned into a Cub in
I loved
2037,
it.
but they,
Yeah,
they got rid of that.
it's a shame. I think
Total
people
shame.
people were excited about that. That's just a weird stipulation in the contract there. No, but like it's great first and foremost, like really good for Major League Baseball when these smaller market teams or middle market teams are retaining their superstars. I mean, like I'm also so sick of seeing the fans. I get it, but seeing the fans of small market teams, anytime you try to hype up their young players, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, well he'll be a Dodger soon, or he'll be a Yankee soon." Like this has to give you a little bit of hope that with the way that these contracts are structured, with pre-arbitration, and the teams, even the lesser rich teams, can still leverage that and be able to retain their players. And I will say this is probably the most player friendly pre-arb extension we've seen. But they get 3 extra years of Bobby Witt Jr. And I don't know how many Royals fans were very confident that he was going to be a Royal beyond that final year of ARB. So 3 years of him in his prime is something really exciting, I think, for Royals fans. And now they can buy that jersey comfortably, knowing that he's going to be there for close to the next decade.
So I just did the calculation. If he were to match the arbitration number, and Soto is, I think Soto was a Super 2 guy. Yeah, this is his fourth year of arbitration. So I took the league minimum, and then I took Soto's first year of arbitration, his third year of arbitration, and his fourth year of arbitration, assuming that these numbers continue to escalate. If Bobby Witt matches Juan Soto's ARB numbers, and we're not asking him to match Juan Soto's production, we're just saying that's where we could see him. Like in his third year of arbitration, he could make $30 million in
Mm-hmm.
4 years because that's where the number could be.
Yep.
Through ARB 3, Bobby Witt would be owed $80.45 million. Okay. Let's call it $40 million on the heels of that for 3 years, right? That's the control before the first opt out. So 80.45 plus 120 or 120, yeah, 40 times 3, $200.45 million. As of right now, 2 plus 7 plus 13 plus 19 plus 70 plus 30. He's going to make $141 million. So technically speaking, they would be saving about $60 million if he achieved those Juan Soto numbers and made $40 million a year on the open market. That is a 100th percentile outcome.
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, he's kind of close to his peak outcome, right? Like, I think after what we saw last year, you could look at this guy and say he's an MVP candidate. And, it's funny. I was thinking about it because you and I had the conversation yesterday about just the pre-arb deal for Witt and how it's probably the most player friendly one we've seen because they're not really saving quote unquote that much unless he's legitimately a perennial MVP candidate, which I actually think he very well can be.
Yeah.
But the more I thought about it, the more I started to realize like you are saving because if you didn't do this now, you probably were going to lose him right after the
Part
final
three.
year of arbitration because there's just some sort of value of a perennial MVP candidate, just being able to know that you're going to have him for 3 more years. So it's not the classic Atlanta Braves, like we're going to take the risk and, we're going to get you for, 60 cents on the dollar. And I know that's what happened with Ronald Acuna Jr., but there's a reason why it's not happening anymore. I mean, these agents are learning and not allowing that to happen. And also these guys are so talented now that I think teams are a little bit more confident. We have more data, we have more information that they can, make these gambles, these really well-educated gambles. And I wouldn't even call it that when you're locking up a guy like Bobby Witt Jr. But I was just kind of thinking about it and I'm saying, he really wants to hit the open market. I'm sure his agents at Octagon want him to hit the open market as soon as possible because he could be a $400 million player when that
Right.
happens. So if you want to delay that by 3 years, you're not going to save that much money, but you're going to get him for 3 more years because by the time his ARB is up, it's open bidding. And the Royals ain't winning that open bidding. So I get it from that lens. And maybe they can even renegotiate in 2-3 years and put together another extension off of that. So it buys them more time too. So the more I've marinated with it, the more I understand why it would be so player friendly in this case.
Yeah, and you just kind of look at it year by year, and it is cheaper than like any number that he'll check in at. The only one that isn't is this year. He would have made 750 grand.
And the 7 mil signing bonus, of course.
And the 7 mil
Eight.
signing bonus.
Really 8. Yeah.
Gotcha.
7777777.
Right. So like he got that, whatever, signing bonus aside, he was going to make 2 mil this year. That is, more than double the league minimum that he would have made pre-ARB. But then like ARB1, he probably would have checked in at 7. He's getting paid 7. He would have checked in at probably right around 13, maybe greater than 13. He's getting 13. ARB3 absolutely would have been above 19. He's getting 19. And then if he is what they expect him to be, he's going to be a lot better than what, $100 million over 3 years. Like, yeah. Especially in that market in 2028. And it is controlled through his age 30 season. So like when he gets his player option, he's on the other side of 30. What does that look like? I don't know. I saw a fun tweet kind of tying a bow on the Braves thing that you mentioned. And like players don't want that to happen to them. Dayton from Nebraska at Braves America tweeted a side-by-side of Bobby Witt and Michael Harris. And I think that's a pretty solid comp, especially at the time that they came in. Michael Harris in 250 career games has accumulated 8.8 F4. He's besting Bobby Witt in every line of the slash line. Bobby Witt is at 8 wins, and Witt is pretty much guaranteed 11 for 278. It maxes at 14 for 377. Michael Harris 8 for 72. It maxes at 10 for 102.
Yeah, I mean the value on the Harris deal is crazy. Also, it's easier when you have a second round or third round pick who didn't sign for as much, whose dad wasn't a big leaguer, and you can leverage that situation a little bit more. That said, I think the upside of Bobby Witt is just so much more immense. Like I don't see Michael Harris ever competing for an MVP. I really think that Bobby Witt Jr. is going to get one in his time with the Royals. I genuinely do.
Yeah, because I mean the homers and the stolen bases, like.
And then the defense at short, like I told you, like one of the most like confusing things for me ever. I literally was contemplating my abilities at all to assess talent when Bobby Witt Jr. was grading out as a bad defender, because that was one of the easier 60 gloves I've been able to grade out in a little while at that time. And then he was so brutal. I was so confused. And then now seeing what he was able to do last year, I mean, it's you're going to get great defense at short, 40-40 upside. Like it's scary. Last thing I'll say is Royals spending. Like I know it's Seth Lugo doesn't really get people going, but they're spending. That even that deal was more than what we've seen them spend mostly. Going out and picking up pieces here and there. I don't know what it's going to look like for them this year, but I am very happy to see the Royals actually trying, spending, and trying to put together a good product because we've seen those fans, Pat Kaufman. We've seen Royals fans be some of the best in baseball. We've seen them hijack the All-Star game for multiple years. That was crazy when it was just
Alcides
all Royals.
Escobar.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, all those Royals were getting voted in. Like that's fine. I want to see more of that, and hopefully, the Royals are kind of getting their fans back on board for that, and we're going to see, Maikel Garcia in the All-Star game this year, even if he has a 710 OPS.
I'm sure. Spoiler alert, we are going to start with a Royal when we do the top 10 first base.